All right, so you want to know how to just radiate confidence.
Yeah.
We got this text you sent over.
Yeah.
And we're going to do a deep dive into it.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's all about like quieting that inner critic.
Yeah.
You know, the one we all have.
Oh, yeah.
That's like always telling us we're not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's really interesting how this text frames confidence.
Yeah.
It's not about, using some tricks or memorizing lines or anything.
Right.
It's really about like this fundamental shift in how we think about interactions and approach them.
Okay. So how do we actually do that? I mean, like, where do we even begin?
Well, the author starts off by talking about this idea of focus outward.
Okay.
So it's about like shifting your attention away from your own internal doubts and anxieties and like really genuinely engaging with the person you're with.
So instead of, like overthinking every word I say or,
Yeah.
Worrying about whether they like me, I should be like totally focused on them.
Exactly. It's almost like a mindfulness practice,
Yeah.
Bringing your attention to the present moment and really being there with that person.
That's a great connection. I never thought about it like that.
And what's really fascinating is how the text connects this idea to active listening.
Okay, so it's not just about, being in the same room with someone.
No, not at all. It's about like really being present and tuning in to what they're saying and even how they're saying it.
So like paying attention to their tone of voice, their body language, all those little nonverbal cues.
Exactly. It's like you become this detective of human behavior.
Yeah.
You're picking up on these subtle signals that most people miss.
Okay, I'm kind of liking this detective analogy. It makes it sound kind of exciting.
Right. And the text argues that this level of attentiveness is actually incredibly attractive to others.
Okay, that makes sense because,
Yeah.
everyone wants to feel like they're the most interesting person in the room, right?
Absolutely. It shows that you're genuinely interested in them as a person and not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Okay, so focus outward is like the first piece of the puzzle.
Right.
But there's another concept that really stood out to me, and it's called embracing imperfection.
Mm-hmm.
And like at first it seems kind of counterintuitive, right? You would think that people would be more drawn to someone who's like, polished and perfect.
Right. That's what we're often told.
Yeah, exactly.
What?
But this text is saying that the more we strive for like this unattainable perfection, the more rigid and unapproachable we actually become.
Yeah, it's like we build up these walls around ourselves and it makes it harder for people to connect with us.
It's so true. And haven't you found yourself like drawn to people who are like comfortable laughing at their own mistakes?
Absolutely. It's so disarming and refreshing.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you can relax and be yourself around them.
Totally. I remember this one time I was at this networking event and I totally butchered this guy's name. I was mortified. But I just like owned it and turned it into a joke. And you know what? It actually like broke the ice. We ended up having this amazing conversation.
Yeah. That's a perfect example of how imperfection can actually be a strength. It creates this sense of authenticity that people are really drawn to.
So it's not about like hiding our flaws. It's about like owning them in a way that's genuine and relatable.
Precisely. And the text argues that this genuine connection that comes from embracing our imperfections is much more attractive than trying to project this fabricated persona of perfection.
So it's like the difference between like a perfectly airbrushed photo and a candid snapshot that captures someone's true spirit.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It's about letting people see the real you, warts and all.
I love that. Okay, so
Yeah.
we've got focus outward and embracing imperfection. But how do we actually cultivate that sense of presence the text keeps talking about?
Right, because it's not just about physically being in the same room as someone, is it?
Yeah, like what does it actually mean to be present?
Well, the text suggests that it's about being mentally and emotionally engaged in the moment, not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. It's about really tuning in to your senses and experiencing the world as it unfolds.
So like taking a few deep breaths, noticing the feeling of my feet on the ground, things like that.
Exactly. Those are great examples. The text also mentions things like focusing on your senses, like really noticing the sounds around you, the smells, the textures.
I love that it's like taking a mini meditation break before you enter a social situation.
Right. And by grounding ourselves in the present moment, we're actually freeing up our mental energy to really focus on the other person.
Okay, that makes sense. Because when we're not distracted by our own thoughts and anxieties, we can be more attentive and responsive to what the other person is saying and doing.
Exactly. And the text suggests that this calm, grounded presence is something that people really pick up on.
It's like it signals this level of confidence and self-awareness that's really attractive.
Absolutely. It's like you're saying, I'm comfortable here and I'm present with you.
Okay, I'm already feeling more centered just thinking about it. But let's be honest, sometimes conversations can feel a little stale,
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
Like, is there a way to inject some life into those interactions?
Absolutely. The text has a whole section dedicated to what it calls playful banter.
Playful banter. Okay, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
What is that exactly?
It's like that lighthearted teasing that can really elevate a conversation and make it more fun and engaging.
So like giving someone a hard time about their love for pineapple on pizza.
That's the spirit. It's about showing that you don't take things too seriously, that you're comfortable enough to joke around.
But there's a fine line between like playful banter and being offensive,
Yeah.
right? Like how do we make sure we're not crossing it?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's where calibration comes in, paying attention to the other person's cues.
So making sure they're actually enjoying the banter and not taking it the wrong way.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where you're both laughing and feeling comfortable. And when done right, playful banter can be a really powerful tool for building rapport and connection.
I love that it's like it takes the pressure off. You're not trying to be so serious and perfect all the time.
Right. It allows you to relax and just enjoy the interaction.
Okay, so we've got outward focus, embracing imperfection, playful banter. This is great. But what about those of us who are like constantly seeking validation from others,
Yes.
Like the text mentions this idea of letting go of validation as a key element of confidence. Can you talk more about that?
This is where it gets really deep. The text argues that this need for constant approval from others actually stems from insecurity.
Okay.
And it can actually make us less attractive because it comes across as needy.
It's like we're chasing approval instead of inviting connection.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. It's like we're saying, I need you to tell me I'm good enough because I don't believe it myself.
Which is kind of sad when you think about it.
It is, and it can be really exhausting, always trying to please others and get their approval.
So instead of worrying about whether someone likes us, we should just focus on genuinely enjoying the interaction for what it is.
Exactly. It's about shifting our mindset from needing validation to wanting connection,
Okay, so when we're secure in ourselves, we don't need that constant external reassurance.
Right. You're coming from a place of abundance, not scarcity.
And that changes the entire dynamic, right?
It really does. It's like you're no longer trying to prove yourself, you're just being yourself. And that can be incredibly attractive to others.
Okay, I can see how that would be really liberating, like taking the pressure off.
Yeah.
But the text also talks about being vulnerable. And that seems a bit risky, right? Doesn't it make us more susceptible to getting hurt?
Vulnerability can definitely feel risky. It's about, putting yourself out there and opening yourself up to the possibility of rejection.
Yeah, exactly.
But the text argues that it's essential for building genuine connection. It's not about oversharing or spilling your deepest secrets on a first date. It's about being open and honest in a way that feels appropriate for the situation.
So maybe sharing a funny anecdote about a childhood mishap or a story about your quirky family, something like that?
Exactly. It's about choosing those moments wisely and gauging the appropriate level of vulnerability based on the stage of the relationship or interaction.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a lot to absorb. It seems like confidence is about so much more than just, striking a power pose or using cheesy pickup lines.
It really is. It's about cultivating an inner strength and self-assurance that naturally radiates outward. And the text goes on to explore some really fascinating ways to do just that.
But we'll save that for part 2.
Yeah, we've got a lot more to cover.
This is great stuff, though. I'm really enjoying this deep dive.
Me too. It's fascinating stuff.
All right, so we'll be back soon with part 2 of our deep dive into irresistible confidence. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. So we're going to keep diving deeper into all these nuances of irresistible confidence.
Yeah.
And this next section is all about, actually putting these concepts into practice.
Right, because it's one thing to understand the theory.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do we actually integrate these ideas into our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah, for sure.
And this text really emphasizes that, it's the consistent practice of these skills that actually leads to real lasting change.
It's not about some overnight success. It's more about building those confidence muscles over time.
Absolutely. It's like, learning a new language or an instrument, you wouldn't expect to become fluent after just one lesson.
Right, exactly.
It takes dedication and consistent effort.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But with so many great tips in this text, it can feel a bit overwhelming. Where do we even begin?
That's a common challenge a lot of people face. It's tempting to try to overhaul everything at once. But the text actually cautions against that. It recommends picking one skill and really focusing on mastering it before moving on to the next one.
Okay, so maybe this week I'll work on, focus outward, really tuning into those nonverbal cues during conversations. And then next week I'll challenge myself to, inject some playful banter into my interactions.
That's a fantastic approach. It's about building those skills gradually, layer by layer, until they become second nature.
Okay, I like that. And the text also stresses the importance of paying attention to how these small changes actually impact your interactions.
Right. It's not just about going through the motions.
So becoming more aware of, how people respond to me, how those interactions make me feel.
Precisely. It's like conducting your own personal experiment,
Oh, wait.
Each interaction becomes this opportunity to gather data and refine your approach.
Okay, I love that it's like becoming a scientist of social dynamics.
Right. It's about being curious and observant.
But let's be honest, change isn't always easy. Like there are going to be times when we slip up when those old habits creep back in.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The text acknowledges that setbacks are a natural part of the process.
Okay, good.
It's not about beating yourself up when you stumble, It's about recognizing those moments as opportunities for growth.
That's a good way to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of what we were talking about earlier, about embracing imperfection. It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal.
Right.
It's about progress over perfection.
Exactly. And the text highlights the importance of being patient with yourself,
Yeah.
It's about celebrating those small wins, acknowledging how far you've come, and recognizing that confidence is a journey, not a destination.
And like the journey itself can be pretty amazing, right?
Yeah.
As you start to quiet that inner critic and step into your authentic self, it can unlock this whole new level of freedom and joy.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. It's like you're finally giving yourself permission to be fully expressed, to show up in the world as your true, unfiltered self.
And that's where the real magic happens.
Yeah.
When you're no longer hiding behind this mask of self-doubt, you become magnetic.
That's the beauty of this approach, It's not about trying to be someone you're not. It's about embracing who you are and letting that shine through. And the text goes on to explore some really powerful techniques for cultivating that inner confidence. But we'll delve into those in part 3.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into irresistible confidence.
Yeah.
We've talked about outward focus, embracing imperfection, playful banter, so many great tools. But what I keep coming back to is how the text emphasizes that true confidence, it really comes from within.
Yeah, it's the foundation. It's not just about these external behaviors.
Right.
It's about cultivating that inner strength and self-assurance that allows those behaviors to flow naturally.
And one of the most powerful ideas the text presents is that seeking constant validation from others.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a sign that we haven't fully embraced our own worth.
Yeah, that really resonated with me too. It's like we're looking outside of ourselves for something that can only be found within.
It's like we're saying, I need you to tell me I'm good enough because I don't believe it myself.
Exactly. And the text suggests that this neediness can actually make us less attractive because it comes across as insecure.
It's like that old saying, you can't love anyone else until you love yourself.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. When we're secure in our own worth, we don't need that constant external validation.
Right.
We're coming from a place of abundance, not scarcity.
And that changes the whole dynamic.
It really does. Instead of chasing approval, we're
Right.
inviting connection.
We're saying, hey, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it.
Exactly. And paradoxically, that's often what makes people lean in.
Interesting.
There's a certain magnetism to someone who is comfortable in their own skin.
So how do we actually cultivate that unshakable inner confidence? I mean, we all have that inner critic, right? That voice that's always whispering doubts and insecurities.
We do. The text calls it our inner saboteur.
Okay.
And it acknowledges that, it can be incredibly persistent.
Yeah.
But it also reminds us that we don't have to believe everything that voice tells us.
But it also reminds us that we don't have to believe everything that voice tells us.
We have the power to choose which thoughts we give attention to.
Exactly. It's about becoming aware of those negative thought patterns
Yeah.
and consciously choosing to challenge them. And the text provides some really practical techniques for doing just that. Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, affirmations are a really powerful tool.
Okay.
It might feel silly at first,
Right.
but repeating positive statements about yourself can actually rewire your brain for confidence.
So instead of saying I'm not good enough, it's I am worthy and capable.
Exactly. You're literally changing the script.
I like that.
The text also talks about visualization.
Okay.
Vividly imagining yourself succeeding in those situations that typically trigger your insecurity.
So if public speaking makes me nervous, I could visualize myself delivering this amazing presentation, feeling confident and composed.
Exactly. You're creating this positive mental blueprint for success.
That's cool.
And don't underestimate the power of gratitude. you know?
Well,
Focusing on what you're thankful for can really shift your attention away from what you lack and cultivate the sense of abundance.
so it's not just about silencing the inner critic.
Right.
It's about replacing it with this like inner cheerleader.
You got it. And as you start to cultivate that inner strength and self-belief, it will naturally radiate outward.
It'll impact like my posture, my voice, my interactions.
Exactly. You'll start to carry yourself differently.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important takeaway is that irresistible confidence, it's not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
It's a journey. It's an ongoing process of self-discovery, growth, and transformation.
Beautifully said. And the beauty of it is that it's a journey that's available to each and every one of us, you know?
Right.
No matter where you're starting from, you can choose to step into your power, embrace your worth, and create a life that reflects your most authentic, confident self.
And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us on this deep dive into irresistible confidence. We hope it sparked some new insights and inspired you to embark on your own journey of confident self-discovery. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep believing in the incredible power that lies within you.